How we doing, everybody? DommyGun, Rici, back at you Saturday morning. The date is August 12th. Live from the East Coast studios of Who-Bangin Sports Talk. First leg of today's doubleheader, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. But welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming in. This, I believe, is the start of Week 12. This is our 18th broadcast. And so far, so good. So we're going to try to keep it going. I talked about today's doubleheader, and we're starting off the Who-Bangin Saturday doubleheader. No need to ever leave your channel on Saturday going through for the next couple months, I should say. And that is because we have lighted up every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. MLB right through the regular season. And then we'll see what happens with the postseason, how we're going to work that out. But more importantly, second leg of the doubleheader is the return of the Boss and the Sauce, sixth year running, the longest low bag show that we know that stayed on the same channel, same group of guys, the two OGs of college football, Big Boss, DJ, and the Big Ragoo 62. They'll be on at 11:30. We'll be on long before that. Today I got about four bets, a couple question marks with today. But, hey, it's August, man. August, it's starting second week in August. We are starting to heat up. I know the NFL preseason has started. I'm not a preseason guy. I don't bet preseason. I know people talk about preseason. I know a lot of people think they have advantage in preseason. I don't buy it. I never have. I don't blame you for betting it. It's fun, but I wouldn't go all crazy about preseason. I mean, I'm hearing guys yesterday talking about sharp bets, talking about, line movements, it's preseason, guys. Don't get yourself too caught up on the preseason. I know something about preseason football, man, that everybody just goes bonkers because we all love NFL so much. And a lot of us love NFL the most. So it is definitely, we are chomping at the bit, I should say, when NFL season comes. But just be careful. Nothing wrong with, I'm not telling you not to bet NFL preseason. I'm just saying take it easy. Take it light. My man, Gerald Jones in the house. Lecce, my brother. Straight from upstate New York. Right by the Saratoga racetrack. What a spot to go. And if you're not into horse racing, it's just great vacation. Besides being beautiful upstate in New York, that Saratoga racetrack, there's something about walking into that track and the old school, the charm, the people, you notice the regulars, you notice who the tourists are. It's just a great combination. It's a great spot up there, and something that I would, if as a sports guy, as us sports guys and girls in the that love our sports betting and love sports in general. Like I said, even if you're not a big horse racing person, man, there's nothing like Saratoga racetrack. And not for nothing, there's a few tracks like that. Santa Anita, which I like to get to, that I hear a lot about. And, of course, beautiful Belmont racetrack down the block from my house. I'm about 3 miles from, 2 to 3 miles, a bicycle ride to Belmont racetrack. And just another great stadium. A track, by the way, that they are going to be redoing. They're going to be closing the oldest school racetrack, man, Aqueduct. That's where the real New York race guys, racing handicappers, horse players really congregate, man. There's nothing like just watching those guys at Aqueduct. You could go there 5 years later and you'll see the same guys, same spot, same bench. It's just great. But New York proposed a deal that went through where the Naira is going to do something else with that property at Aqueduct. There is already one of those casinos, but not a real casino. The games casino, just all electronic games, no real dealers, no poker. The fake-ass casino. That's what's there at Aqueduct now as part of the racetrack. But they're going to put all the money into Belmont, tear it down, and rebuild it. It's old. It needs some work for sure. So the next couple of years, that Belmont racetrack is going to be flying. They already built, if you don't know, that Islanders built their new stadium right on the grounds of Belmont racetrack. They already dug the hole for the hotel going up there. So it's going to be interesting. The area where I live now is starting to really pop up as far as in the sports betting, industry. And a real casino is finally coming on the grounds of the old Islander Stadium, the Nassau Coliseum. I believe, the Sands Corporation picked up, got the contract and got the license, and they're going to be putting up a full-service casino. So we could have a nice Long Island low bag trip, Gerald, coming. So, obviously it's going to take a year or two, but, there was never really, where I am in Long Island, I'm only 30 minutes outside of Manhattan. But as far as like a trip with a bunch of guys and stuff, there was really no spot to go to except in Manhattan. That's super, super expensive. But now that these casinos are coming, and that casino is going to be about a 6-mile difference from Belmont Racetrack. So something we could always, do together. My head's always looking for reasons and spots for us to get together as a group. So anyway, Gerald, it's popping up over here with the horse racing. And speaking of horse racing, we are planning a trip, and it's always welcome for whoever's going to be around. We are planning a trip for the Breeders' Cup this year, to go out west, and some I never went to those tracks, Del Mar and things like that out in California, so it should be fun. Okay, Gerald, I know we've talked about Atlantic City a couple times. I know Pub has talked about it a couple times. It's never gone through. That's definitely something we could do amongst ourselves and just do an East Coast gathering that me and you should talk about, actually. That's something we could talk about and get together pretty easy. There's a good handful of, there's a good 20, 30 guys right here on the East Coast between Delaware and Pennsylvania and, in that area in New York. So good idea. Okay, I'm off a big day. I've talked about August being a tricky month, and it has been a tricky month for me. I've been a little bit up and down. August is where you see the teams starting to make their moves. You see the younger teams that were doing really good in the first half start to fade away, like the Arizona Diamondbacks, for instance. This is that time of year. The young pitchers that been rocking in the first half, now their innings are starting to, add up. Some of them aren't used to pitching those kind of innings. There's a lot of differences going on in August, and this is where for me, August is where I got to be careful because as well as I did in the first half, I could give it all back in a couple of weeks. And we all know that. It's a lot harder to get those plus units than it is to give them away. That's for sure. So, but I am off a really good night. The first good night I've had, probably the best night I've had probably in the month of August. We had the Guardians team total over 3.5. I just love that bet. I love betting against the Valley. We had the Reds against the Pirates, another team that we all thought the Pirates were going to be, doing something, and little by little they're fading away. We'll talk about that team later. I did have Seattle against the Baltimore Orioles. I talked last week about fading the Orioles against these good teams. They got a rough. I'm not saying the Orioles are out, and I'm not saying the Orioles won't come back and win this division or definitely be in the playoffs, but I did think that this part of their schedule was going to be tough. I took a rare series bet with the Astros against them and had that first night with Javier plus 138. I didn't understand that line and why it's like that. But that series won. I hit a couple of those games with the Astros beating Baltimore, and I went last night back against them. I didn't take the series with Seattle, but maybe I should have. But I did take Seattle last night minus 134, and they took care of business with Baltimore. Now, in the Orioles' defense, that was such a bad spot, though, last night. I mean, they did have that Astros series, which they didn't do well in. They were home. They had that last game they did win. It was a high-scoring game. They flew out to Seattle. Tough place to pitch. Tough place to play. A pitcher's-friendly ballpark. And, so, I thought it was a pretty, a good way to back the Seattle, and that minus 134 was the reason why. As a lot of you know, I don't go past minus 140, so we were glad to get that one in. But we had a couple of the Mets on the first 5.5. Got a little lucky there. There was 5 runs there. But these Met games going forward, I'll be honest with you, if I don't like the first 5 under, I'm kind of being off these games now with the Mets because I don't know what to do with them, how to go with them. I have been successful with that first 5, under 4.5. So, keep that in mind. It's been a pretty solid bet. Gerald, Seattle starters have been the best ERA. Yeah, Seattle, listen, they're starting to hit a little bit. We see what Seattle did last year, right? At the end of the year, it was Seattle and Cleveland. They came up out of, I shouldn't say out of nowhere, but they had just unexpected great second halves, really. And they made a nice little run and a nice progression. Now, it looks like Seattle's starting to do that again. Cleveland, I don't know, man. Those bats still, they scored some runs yesterday. We did have the team total over. That was more because of the pitching match. I did not understand Cleveland getting rid of Savali. I kind of didn't understand that, and to me, that was a red flag because why would they get rid of Savali and then who did they replace him with? Noah Syndergaard. Now Noah's pitched okay, and actually we got we got a little lucky with Noah Syndergaard because of I'm sorry, that was the game before. Yesterday was Curry, and I'm sorry, I made I was switching up to 2 games. Let me go back to my notes here. Yeah, Savali was against Curry yesterday. The day before that was Syndergaard, where we had the under in that game, and I got a little bit lucky with that game because they stranded a lot of men on base. Cleveland did, and the Rays did, and Syndergaard kept on pitching out of trouble in that game. And the game before that, he pitched his first start for Cleveland. He pitched well. He had I think maybe 2 hits in 5 innings, and then he got hit in the leg with a line drive, and they took him out. But that's Syndergaard for you. He'll pitch a couple good games. You'll start backing him, and then he'll throw he has a great fastball, but his ball does not move, and guys pick up it second, third time through the order. But be that as it may, the reason why I brought that up was was Cleveland. They got rid of Savali and they took Syndergaard. I didn't understand that. To me, that meant that they knew that they might have been selling high on Savali. Because if you looked at his numbers, he had some great ERA numbers. He had some great, strikeout numbers. His walk numbers were okay, but his X numbers, his X FIPS, his X ERA was jumping higher and higher, and it looked like he was going into that regression thing. And listen, 5 innings pitched, 7 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. That's not going to do it. So I think Savali is a fade. I don't know. Tampa's another team that I can't put my finger on it. Are they going to make that run or not? Something tells me that they're not. A game I wouldn't expect at 8-9 yesterday, but that's what happened. But anyhow, we did have that Guardian team total over. Let's go with today. So a lot of games today. Opening up with the Mets doubleheader, like I said. First of all, this first game, I don't know anything that I could tell you about these 2 pitches. The Mets pitches, Reyes hasn't pitched since, I think, May. Winans for Atlanta has pitched 1 game. So, it's a game I'm staying off. Maybe later, we'll see how we do with some early games. Quintana, who I like and who's been pitching well, is pitching in the late game tonight. So that might be something to take a look at. First game that I'm on, and the first game we're going to talk about is the Chicago Cubs against the Toronto Blue Jays. Steele against Bassett. We know Bassett's splits have been decent at home, not on the road. He's a weird pitcher, Bassett. I watched a lot of his starts with the Mets. He's a guy that I was happy with. The Mets took him. He came from Oakland, from the American League, went to the National League, had a good run for the Mets until the end of the year. And he talked about how he was tired. He talked about how he just was fading, just as the team was fading last year with the Mets, as Buck Showalter just played them to death, played the starters to death, played the veterans to death. And I think that had a lot to do with that. But today's matchup, Steele against Bassett. Steele's another good, he's a good pitcher. He throws in a couple times. There's been a couple games that I thought he pitched better than he did. But 3 earned runs or fewer in his last 4 starts, and the Cubs are 4-0 in those starts. So the Cubs do back him up. Bassett has only had, in his last 5 starts, there's only one game that he gave up 4 or more earned runs. So Bassett's been, pitching pretty good too. The Cubs, number 1 versus righty in the last month in ISO. They have a low K percentage. They got a high walk rate. Cubs have been hitting righties pretty well all year long. The last month there've been some power in those numbers with the Cubs. Their OPS, team OPS is right up there also. The Blue Jays though, versus lefties, number 1 team OPS and number 5 ISO. But I think these pitchers are going to be geared up for this game. This is an important series for both these teams. Like, if you think about it, the Cubs and Toronto are kind of in the same boat in a way of where they need these games. They're right in the mix in their divisions. The Cubs more so than Toronto is in the toughest division in baseball, if you ask me. But I was leaning towards the Cubs, but I was afraid to take the Cubs outright today. I went with the first 5 under 4.5 minus 115. I do think that these guys both come out dealing. I do think that stay away from the pens maybe in this game. There could be some third time through the order and then into the pen. We could get some late runs, but I'm gonna stick with the Chicago with the first 5 team total. I'm sorry. I'm going to stick with the first 5 under 4.5 minus 115. I'm better off sticking to the old-fashioned way, man, writing stuff down. I've been trying to do stuff on a spreadsheet. That ain't me, man. I'm better off with my book and my writing. I got papers everywhere. I got old school papers everywhere, written down stuff. But anyhow, I think I'm better off sticking that way. All right, so we're going to go with that. We're going to go with that first 5 under 4.5 minus 115. Next game we're going to talk about, I was a little, this game I have a question mark against. I still don't know what to do with this game, and that is the Boston game, Detroit against Boston. Bellows off a good start, off a decent start. 6 2/3 innings, he only allowed 1 run. But he's been a little bit of a tough pitcher to figure out. He's had a couple clunkers in the middle there. He's really been a ground ball type pitcher, and he has been giving up some hard contact lately. And I was going back and forth with this game. I don't like taking these overs over 9.5. But I'll tell you, if anyway, there has to be runs scored somewhere in this game, and I would think that would be the right way to go. But I'm just all over the place with this game. I had a question mark by Boston's team total over, but it was 5.5 minus 110. Now it's juiced to the under. I don't know. I mean, Manning has been terrible. His last 3 games. His last 4 starts, the Detroit lost 14-3, 11-4, 10-6, and 4-1, okay? He had 6 earned runs in one of them, 4 earned runs in another, 7 earned runs in another. Tough one, right? But, there you go. So Brito's pitching against Alcantara today? Okay, that was the game I was wondering about. I was a little bit, yeah. That was the game I was wondering about. So that was my other question mark game. So maybe we'll talk about that and we'll see what we can come at. Red Sox, by the way, number 4 in isolated power versus righties the last 30 days. They've really been good against righties all year long. Number 10 OPS versus righties last 30 days. That start that I talked about, Bayo, 6 2/3, 1 run, was against the Royals, but he only had 2 Ks again in that game, and the Royals did have some opportunity. They stranded some guys on that in that game. So again, Gerald puts it great. A Red Sox fan, tough to bet. He's passing, and that'll just put a check instead of a check mark on that game and a question mark. it gets the big X. Thank you, Gerald. Thank you. So I also had the big question mark on New York, Miami. We'll talk about that in a minute. I only have a couple games more that I bet. The next one I did bet was Minnesota against Philadelphia. Philly's another team, man. They have the bats, they got the pitching, and they just every time they start doing well, they start doing good. I don't know. They seem to fall back a little bit. Their bullpen is an issue. Thank you. Their bullpen is an issue. Their high Sierra, things like that. I like Lopez. I think he's a good pitcher. And I like both pitchers, I should say. I also like Walker. But Walker wasn't listed last night when I started capping this game. And but I still am not changing my bet. I had a question mark next to Lopez as to find out who was going to pitch against Minnesota. But I took the Twins minus 110. I know the Twins are a tough team. Sometimes they don't hit the ball. They do strike out a lot. But I'm a big Lopez guy. He's pitched good, very good on the road. He's pitched, let's see, last 4, 2 earned or fewer. His last 2 starts were on the road. 1 earned, 13 innings, 13 strikeouts combined in the 2 games. For the season on the road, Lopez, 78 innings, 78 and 2/3 innings, a 3.09 ERA. His K rate is up there. I do like Walker, but what I don't like about Philly is their team OPS and their team ISO now against righties has dipped below average for the in baseball. So they have dipped below average in those 2 categories. I don't know. There's something I do like the under in this game also. As far as Walker, I don't have anything negative to say against Walker. Walker's a guy that I've ex-Met, a guy I like. Let's see how he's been faring. I know he didn't have the greatest start of the year, but let's see. Walker. Oh, no, I'm wrong. Walker had a very good start of the year. Lopez didn't have the good start of the year. Walker overall, 13-4, 4.05 ERA, 1.26 whip. Last 3s, which I love to look at. 19 innings pitched. Lopez has pitched 20, so both of them have pitched pretty deep in these last 2 games, in their last 3 starts. Both pitches. Lopez, a 1.35 ERA. Walker did give up those couple of those runs there. 3.72 ERA with a 1.29 whip. Lopez's whip, though, the last 3 games is 0.80. 21 strikeouts against 2 home runs. Walker's 10 strikeouts against 2 home runs. I took the Twins minus 110. I don't mind this under at all. Maybe even the first 5 on them might be also a look in this game. I think Gerald likes the Phillies. Listen, this is a tough game. And listen, that's why the Twins, they are favored on the road, but it is only 110. And that's probably a lot to do, not with Walker. It has more to do with the damn bullpen for the Phillies. So this might even be one of those. I know BetUS has those double results. I'm not sure who else does, where, Phillies first 5, Phillies win, vice versa. Or you could do a Minnesota. When you do an opposite team, like just for an example, you do Minnesota first 5, Phillies win the game. Those damn odds are always plus 900, plus 1100. It's crazy. It's crazy sometimes. But that's a tough way to pick 2 teams in one game like that. If anything, the few times that I did use a double result was with teams like the Astros, where they were like big favorites, like minus 200, 230, and that double result knocks it down to like minus 110, minus 120. It's basically a in-game parlay, which is, to me, is basically a stupid bet. But those bets are available, and sometimes you can get a little bit, when you're on a good streak, you throw in a couple of those here and there and see. Because you know how it is. You always get lucky when you're on a good streak. When you're not doing good, when you're having one of those down, those bad times with, in 2 weeks where it happens to all of us, right? Then you can't buy a game, man. You can't get no luck in the, you get 9th innings up 3-4 runs, and then you'll get 2 base hits, an error, and then a home run, weird stuff like that. So, You never know. But anyhow, for this game, I'm going to take the Twins minus 110. That's where I went. Yesterday, I was on Cincy. I jumped on Cincy in the morning. I don't know why I seen this line different than the rest of the world, but I jumped on it at minus 114. I believe it opened at 117. That game got, just to show you about money splits, that game got bet down to plus 105. Everybody and their mother, I kept on hearing about Olivetta and the Pirates. I didn't understand it. I don't think the Pirates are good. I think the Pirates are terrible, actually. Last 30 days, ISO and team OPS are some of the worst in baseball. I mean, I don't like to give out a million numbers. I know a lot of guys just give out millions and millions of numbers. You can just look that up. But trust me, their last month, we know how they did in the first beginning of the year. But you also, if you notice, right before the All-Star break, they started tanking. They had a couple good wins after the All-Star break. But that's going to be Pittsburgh. They're a young team. They're an up-and-coming team. They do not have the pitching, obviously, to go deep. But they're a team that reminds me a little bit, not as much, not as forceful, but a little bit like Baltimore last year, a little bit like Seattle, Cleveland, those teams that were coming on. I like Pittsburgh. I would love to see the Pirates actually spend some money and get a pitching staff together. I mean, it's bizarre. But, they do have a good young core, and they could be a good spoiler team like the Nationals always are in September, like the Marlins have been in the past. Now the Marlins are fighting for something, but those teams in September, obviously I'm an NL East Coast guy with being involved with the Mets so much. But those teams are good spoiler teams over the last few years. I think Pittsburgh might be too. Pittsburgh's the type of team that they'll lose these type of games against the good above average teams like the Reds, but you'll see them go beat an Astros team. You'll see them go beat a Dodger team or something like that. A game that teams that are a lot better than them. That's when you'll see a spoiler with them. But I took the Reds. Minus 111. I like Williamson. I think he's been pitching better and better. He's off a good start against the Marlins, who do not strike out much against lefties and who do hit lefties really well. He had 9 Ks and 6 2/3 against them. Only gave up 1 run. I backed him again. I backed Cincinnati yesterday. Like I said, oh yeah, I know I go over my tangents. So those money splits yesterday just goes to show you how you cannot rely. And I believe that as the year gets later and later, the money splits, I think, maybe mean less and less because there's a lot more information now. The lines are a lot more tighter. People that like us that bet every day, we have, we're more in tune. We've hopefully learned from the mistakes we made in the first half and stuff like that. So I think the money splits sometimes don't mean as much as they do. I personally don't think the money splits mean as much as they did over the last few years. I 100% believe that because of the legal gambling, and it's everywhere, that the whole pros and Joes thing is tighter. I think that there's more guys, regular guys like us that are more in tune. We are betting more. We have more access to different places to bet. And I think that all jives with what my theory of the money splits not being what they used to. And that whole split pros and Joes, which I never really thought was, I always thought that was a nonsense thing for guys that are doing shows to try to, make themselves sound like they're some great capper. I don't know. I'm not the disparity isn't what it used to be. Years ago, yes. Not no more. I like to be called the regular Joe. Us regular Joes have, I'll put a bunch of us against a lot of the so-called, pro handicappers out there. So anyhow, that's my rant for today and maybe my tip for today. But next game I'm on. What are you saying, Gerald? Texas, yeah. I am on Texas. I got 2 more games to talk about. Texas will be the last one. And we'll see if we agree at Texas plus 103 at San Francisco. Are you saying that you got a plus 103 line at San Francisco? If that's what it is now, so that means it went down. Interesting. Okay, let's do this game first. St. Louis against Kansas City. I've been talking about Kansas City against lefties over the last 4 or 5 games. I've had a couple nice wins against lefties with Kansas City. I had a couple good games with Kansas City. I backed them both nights when the Mets, after the trade deadline, and the Mets traded away their pitchers. They went to Kansas City for that first road trip, and I went against the Mets at plus 138 that first night. The second night was less. I'm not sure what the line was. There was less, but we had. I'm not the only one. We talked about it in our Who-Bangin chat, and I talked about it on shows to back Kansas City against the Mets in that series. I backed Kansas City the other night against Paxton. I took their team total over 3.5. It was minus 140. It actually went up to minus 4.5. That team total that day to minus 110. And they lost 2-0. I also took Kansas City on the money line plus 185 that night. Obviously, I lost both bets. That was the day. What was this? That was a couple days ago when there was only like Thursday, right? When there's only like 5 games on the schedule. I lost those 2 games and then won against that. That was the Cleveland under I won against with Syndergaard. But the Kansas City again today is facing a lefty. And who is that lefty? Steven Matz. Yes. Our boy, Steven Matz, back on the hill. Steven Matz is a pitcher I've talked about over the years a bunch of times because he's a Long Island guy, because I seen him as a pitch in high school, same as Stroman, by the way. And for those of you that don't know, both of those guys pitched against each other in high school, and they were on different teams, and they were guys I followed because I kept on hearing about him, and just by chance, by being at a family out east in Long Island at some kind of family thing, we were talking about baseball, and I remember my cousin telling me about Matz. He's a good pitcher. His son had something to do with the team, like broadcasting or something like that. So his son was telling me about the high school plays, that they had some guys that could go forward. And I went to watch him next time, Matz. Then I watched him in another start in high school. So he's a kid I followed. When he got picked for the Mets, I was thrilled, but he never. It was too much for him, I thought, the Mets. I thought the excitement of him being a Met, a home guy, a New York guy, was he didn't have the temperament for it, and it showed. But now he's in St. Louis, and that didn't do any better for his career. But he did get hurt. He's had some injuries. He's had a weird couple of years, my boy Steven Matz. But being that as it may, his last 3 starts off his injury, he has pitched pretty damn good. 18 innings in his last 3. He has less than a 1 ERA, but he came out of the game. I believe he came out of 1 game early, but he 0.994 WHIP, 14 Ks, no strikeouts. His ERA was up in the 7s. It's now finally like 4. So Matz has been getting better and better a little bit, but I don't trust Matz. I never will. I do like Regans or Regans for the young pitcher for KC. 17 innings pitched last 3, 102 ERA, 1.08 WHIP, 22 Ks, 0 home runs. His last 3 games was against the Rays, which was a loss, but he pitched 5 innings, a 1-run game. Then the Mets, he had 6 innings, no runs, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts. And then he pitched at Red Sox, 6 2/3 with 11 Ks, 2 earned runs. 2 runs, only 1 of those earned. I like this pitcher. I wanted to back KC, but you know what? St. Louis's bats also, they sometimes come alive lately, even in their losses. I even talked about this going way back into June, how even in their losses, they seem to hit the ball a lot and score some runs. But what I did in this game, I was tempted, very tempted to go with KC, and I didn't, though. I did take the KC team total over 4.5 plus 110. I think this is a spot where, actually they're taking a little money, now they're plus 127. I do think this is a spot that the Royals could maybe win the game, but I think they should be able to get 5 runs in against this Cardinal team. Let's see if there's any big differences or if this team is like, okay, for instance, opponents run per in rankings. They're both ranking pretty bad or pretty decent in certain categories. Opponents hits per game, they're close. 21st for the Cardinals, 25th for the Royals. Opponent batting average. St. Louis is ranked 29th in baseball. Kansas City 26th. Home runs allowed per game. St. Louis is good. It's good. Only 3. They're ranked third with home runs allowed per game. So they don't give up a lot of home runs, but they give up a lot of hits. And I went with the Royals as a team total over 4.5. See if we get lucky with that game. Again, I don't know, man. Kansas City, something about Kansas City. Another team, another young team, another team that never spends money, another team that has a couple decent pitches. You know, I like Singer. I like this kid to pitch in today, but they just seem to never get put the money and get the big time guys that they got to get. But that's the Royals for you. Same. What is that? Same old Royals, right? Next game up, and the last game I have. Texas Rangers against the San Francisco Giants. Cobb against Heaney. Let's get some numbers up here. Cobb is supposed to be one of the top pitchers, right, in our game, right? And he has pitched well. He's limited hits, but his power numbers have not been good. And it shows you right here. His last 3 games, 17 innings pitched combined his last 3 games. No decisions in any game. A 4.15 ERA with a 0.98 WHIP. So he's been giving up that long ball. You know, he's not giving up a lot of hits, but giving up those home runs. 16 strikeouts to 5 home runs. There you go. Heaney, 16 innings pitched his last 3, 1.62 ERA, 0.90 WHIP, 18 Ks to 1 home run. Heaney 0 earned runs his last 2. That was against the Marlins and White Sox. Yeah, it was White Sox. I was thinking Chicago. It was the White Sox. Not the other guys. San Francisco's bats in general, are they hard to figure out? San Francisco has gone on some runs this year. They had that 10-game streak before the All-Star break. Just they're up and down against lefties, kind of like the Mets. Actually, they notoriously don't hit lefties, and they haven't been in the last 30 days. 29th team OPS, 29th team ISO, and here's the number that really, obviously, with the way I'm talking, I went with Texas, right? Against lefties, the last 30 days, they have a 26% K rate. The average is 22 in 22 point whatever the hell in baseball. They got 26. That's not good. And their walk rate, a little bit over 6%. That's their walk rate, 6.4% to be exact. Last 30 days versus lefties. I went with Texas. I took them plus 109. They're now plus 103. They will be a favorite before the end of the day, I believe. And when I talked about money splits before, I will tell you, when it comes to money splits, there's one thing I almost automatically bet if I see it at the time. Hopefully I got it early before it moves to favorite. But when I see a dog to favorite, a low number, that plus 110-ish, plus 115-ish, down to even, down to minus 105, things like that, I love that move. I love that. The move from favorite to dog don't bother me, and it happened yesterday with the Reds. Minus 117 down to plus 105, okay? But those to me, that's a different ball game. And if you see a money split, that's like a team that starts like plus 200, and they get bet down to, say, plus 170, plus 165. Yeah, that's a huge move. But to me, the higher the number, that's just people taking shots on dogs, and the number being more of the reason why people are betting that game as far as really analytics and handicapping. That's how I think. Those lower numbers, dog to favorite in every sport. In football, I see that dog to favorite. I see that +3, +2 go to -1, -2. I'm jumping on it. And that's something I follow a lot, and with success. Otherwise, I wouldn't follow it a lot. I keep very good records, so that's something I think you should keep an eye on. I know probably a lot of you have keep an eye on that, but that's something that I do, and with success. So let me just say a little bit about Cobb. Cobb's last start was versus Oakland, and before that was against Arizona. Now we to me, when I think of Cobb, he's the ground ball specialist, right? He's like Valdez is. He's even like Bayo's, somewhat of or trying to become a ground ball specialist. But Cobb definitely is known for that. But in those last two games I just mentioned, Oakland and the D-backs, he pitched a combined 11 innings and gave up 5 home runs. That shows me that there's a little bit of an issue there, maybe a little bit of issue with his control. Texas is a tough team, even though you would think with that lineup they would have better numbers. They still are a formidable team. They made the right moves with pitching, where we all thought Texas might be fading a little bit right before the All-Star break, and are they going to be that big team that they're picked to go far from the beginning of the year? Are they going to sustain that? Well, I think they are now. I think Texas is turned on a little switch the last couple days, and I think they're a team to watch out for. I know some of our friends have some big futures on the Texas Rangers, and can only get better. Max Scherzer, adding Max Scherzer is going to be. Listen, Max was doing pretty good with the Mets. I know. The narrative that he didn't pitch well against the Mets, and he didn't in some big spots. And last year playoffs, a lot of blame went to him. But again, I have my only theory about that, and about Buck just using these guys to death. And yeah, he did not perform. But this year, after the beginning of the year where all these old veteran pitchers had problems with the pitch clock and the new rules, I still stand by that. He started getting better and better. What Max was in that clubhouse was huge. He was a teacher. He was like another coach. A lot of the young guys really looked up to him. I've heard many a story on how Max tried to do his best to help that team along behind the scenes. He really thought the Mets were going to go far. Why he released his trade, he had the no trade clause, and why he got rid of it was because the way Billy Epler, who I think the first person I think the Mets should get rid of, told them basically that we're going to have to rebuild without rebuilding, basically, without saying we're rebuilding, but in a way they are. And that next year might be a little bit rough. And Max has told the end of his career he wants to go where there's a winner. And that's a good spot for him to go to Texas. Same way it was a great spot for Verlander to go back to the Astros. I mean, listen, I didn't really like the move of the Mets getting those 2 veteran pitchers to begin with. I think that's the problem with the Mets, is that we don't have those young, hot pitching staff that we need. We don't have those Castillos. We don't have those, Striders. We don't have a lot of the young, good pitchers that are around. A couple of them even pitching today. We don't have them on our team, and I think that's what where the Mets are missing out, is on the young, hot, good pitching staff. I think that's where they should concentrate on. Besides, can we get left field and third base sewn up finally? But anyhow, I won't go on that tangent. So today, I took Texas plus 109, and I also took Texas team total over 3.5, minus 130. I went with both of those bets. I like Texas. Listen, we'll see what happens. It kind of looked to me that it'd be hard to lose both, but you never know. But those are my plays, guys. Texas plus 109. Team total over 3.5, minus 130. Kansas City Royals, team total over 4.5, plus
110. Cincinnati Reds minus 112. Twins minus 110. And the Cubs. Cubs first 5 under 4.5 minus 115. Those are my plays for today. Stay tuned. 11:30. The boys are back, starting their 6 years. Boss and the Sauce, DJ Big Boss and Big Ragoo, doing the NCAA Football first installment of this year's games. College football should be, like it always is, exciting and crazy. For me, it's a tough sport to cap. And that's where I go with the old standby, capping the cappers. And I really just follow my guys when it comes to NCAA football. It's not my forte. Of course, we do have NFL where everyone thinks they're the best NFL cappers. Everyone bets the NFL. It's a tough sport. I've been holding my own the last 2 years. The few years before that has been tough ones for me with the NFL. Thank God I came into the NFL with a good cushion from the MLB, but I did give back a bunch in those years. I don't want to do that this year. Last 2 years, I kind of broke even with the NFL, but we're going to take another shot at it this year. We'll be doing some stuff on Sunday mornings. We'll be doing stuff during the week. You know how we do it, Who-Bangin. We just get bigger, and better. But for today, MLB, light it up. I will be back next Saturday at 10 a.m. Like I said, I'm leaving Thursdays go for the month of August, but we'll be back with the Thursday morning show in September. So MLB September is going to be wild. And Gerald, you're on Twitter, right? Hit me up on DM. Send me a DM. We'll talk. Maybe we can do some kind of AC thing coming up. So anyhow, be that as it may, like I said, NFL starting. Before you know it, we'll be through September into the playoffs for the MLB. What I was going to say about September is going to be such a great MLB season. Besides the Braves, which I think are the most solid team, and boy, that's hard for me to say that. I think that the MLB is still wide open. Yeah, Texas is a good team, but they don't. Still got their crosstown rivals. You still got the Astros involved. Could it be that kind of a series that we get at the end? Get the Astros and Texas playing each other, but there's a couple. Listen, you can't count out the Dodgers. Can't count out the Astros. Is Tampa Bay going to make a run? Is Baltimore going to switch it back around and make a run for that for the NL East? I don't know if I trust the Blue Jays to go far. To me, they're a little bit questionable. I don't think the Guardians are going to do what they did last year. Seattle's the tricky team again for me this year. I kind of like Seattle to maybe go a little bit further than they did last year. But the Braves are really the most solid team out of all the teams playing. If you ask me, if I had to pick one, I mean, it's not a great statement. But yeah. To me, the most solid team is the Braves. But it's wide open, so you never know who the sneaking team is going to be. So we'll see what happens. Even the damn Brewers have been playing decent lately, but you know how the Brewers do, right? As soon as they start doing really well, they'll go into they'll tank and beat themselves as they always do. Minnesota Twins, another team that, seems to be a little bit better than they were in the past. I don't think that they have the problem this year with the Yankees that they have in the past. But they're another tricky team. My point being, it's wide open. So let's see what happens. But until then, 11:30, Boss and the Sauce. Tuesday night, we still got the live sweat. Tease is still doing his WNBA. Every day there's a game. We got some UFC shows now, a Friday night lounge, a boxing lounge starting. So stay tuned to that. We have a whole new schedule of stuff coming out. I'm trying to look for the list, but we'll get it all together and we'll put it out so you guys know what's going on with Who-Bangin. A lot of stuff going on. So Keep yourself tuned to Who-Bangin. But don't forget, 11:30 today, Boss and the Sauce. And for me, I'm DommyGun Rici. I appreciate everybody coming out. I appreciate you showing up. Gerald, love you, brother. Shoot me a DM. Yeah, we got to get together soon, that's for sure. DommyGun Rici signing out.